can't, like, Noah wouldn't be able to play it.
Oh.
So
it's fine. Yeah, I think they're balancing it out because it's a little bit of a head start. Because again, the worst thing you can do is now you buy a game and you can't do anything for the first 3 hours or 4 hours, depending on how fast your Wi-Fi is. So, yeah, that would be
especially on launch because everyone's downloading at the same time. So then you get that that slider, and then it says like 48 days, and you're like, what the F? And then it jumps down to like 6 hours, and then it goes back up to like 7 weeks, and you're like, what the hell is going on?
Well, the worst part is when you download it and then you go to bed and it says time remaining like 5 hours. Like, okay, fine. Yeah. And you go to bed and you sleep and you have great dreams of playing your game the next morning. And you wake up and you're like, I wonder how much time I have left. You turn on your TV and it says 7 hours. You're like, what happened? I've gained 2 hours overnight.
You didn't read the fine print. The fine print says only if you're watching while downloading.
Yeah.
Only if you're watching the bar. Otherwise, we're going to cheat you.
To be fair, like this is what we want now with really good everything in a console game. Like this is we expect this from this level tier game. If you're playing Zelda, we got used to the fact that it's not perfect. It's a big world, but it has to fit on a small US, like basically like a thumb drive, and then you stick it onto your crappy 3rd gen like computer, and you play it, and you're fine with it, just like Pokemon. Nintendo just kind of reses down the everything just to make it work. But I'm telling, like, I think we all agree that Star Wars game is going to be really pretty. It's going to be really big. It's gonna be everything that we expect from the leap from Arkham Asylum to, what's this? Arkham City. The jump where it's just be able to do more, but inevitably when you do more, it's going to cost you more. So. Again, these are first world problems. Again, we're complaining about little things. I still own the crappy Super Nintendo Star Wars Return of the Jedi, or no, Empire Strikes Back game. That was brutal. Like you're running at Hoth and with your little Luke Skywalker jumping with the lightsaber, shooting a gun. It's the same level over and over and over, just to get to Hoth and Sky City and whatnot. So I will take that any day of the week compared to the crappy games we had on the Super Nintendo. Anyways, welcome everyone to the Heroes World Quarantine Podcast. That was a little bit of a rant about games, world, men. Clearly, that's it. I am one of your hosts, Stupe. With me today is both the owners and proprietors of Heroes World, based in Markham / Newville, Ontario. That'd be Andre and John. Please say hello to the people.
Hello, folks.
And finally, I'll decrease him down to now a sire of mischief, Mr. Rob Goudet.
Oh, I'm not even the Prince of Mischief? What the hell?
Well, you have some hot takes. We had to lower you down a level, and we'll see what happens. Maybe you can regain.
Whatever. Hey, can I just say we've got the whole gang back? This is like
the crew. It's been a minute.
It took 2 Herculean shows to gather us all together. The synergy was that. So because of the
Warrior Princess.
What is this when the crossover happened with Hercules and Xena? Is that one thing that happened?
Yeah, could be.
Yeah. So we're here to talk now that both seasons of Picard season 3 and The Mandalorian season 3 are complete. So we kind of shifted away from doing weekly episodes to kind of a general recap of the full season. So we're going to give you our general thoughts on it, just because it went under the radar, like one show, maybe the other one, for various reasons. We'll go into that momentarily. I think for Picard, and I think a lot of us can agree, the first couple seasons were not great, so everyone was very cautiously optimistic, to say the least, for season 3. And I think that the reverse was for The Mandalorian, where the hype was getting so big that I don't think anything we could have done was going to prepare us for season 3. So you could see where I'm slowly leading the group. But let's start with The Mandalorian season 3. So this was kind of a weird thing they're doing now with Lucas, where the first episode they had to recap stuff that happened in the Book of Boba Fett, because clearly you had to watch that to know what was going on. But John, now that we're done the 8-episode run, what are your general feelings about The Mandalorian? Where is this kind of fit in your world after watching it?
Yeah, so spoiler free. I'll keep it relatively light.
Yeah,
they could totally rename the show. That would be my first point. And then other than that, some of the characters that they did introduce, I did get quite attached to. So overall, as a season, it definitely wasn't as hype as season 1, season 2. I feel, but it has some moments and a particular character that I did really like in the series. So overall, I'm pretty happy with it. But you do have to look at it like it really feels like, I've told this to everyone I talk to, it really feels like their version of a network show. So they're trying to like pump out content, trying to get things out quick. So it does not feel like a premium format show. So it's not going to be an HBO Max or like some of the new shows that we actually are being spoiled with, like movie level quality writing and things like that. The show does look hella spectacular. So I can't really complain, but I
have to push back on the Hollywood writing thing, John. I gotta push back a bit. Let's be honest. We love Star Wars, but George wasn't a scribe. He was a.
I'm not comparing it to.
He did a lot of things. There are lines in Star Wars that Mark Hamill said, like, "What is this garbage that you're giving me, George? I'm changing the lines." We love him. George Lucas, we love him.
Those original movies.
His writing is the worst writing of anybody. He's the worst. He's not Sorkin. He's just like bare minimum, just to like move the plot along to see another lightsaber.
I think it's like a different style. Okay, so I guess you would be basically putting Star Wars in this lane of it was not like your West Wing or whatever type highly written show, but what he created is amazing, right? So
the universe that keeps on giving. And Disney, that's why Disney paid $4 billion for it. It keeps on making cash.
Yeah. I would say that this season could have been written tighter, and I would have liked to see that happen. But I kind of understand what this show is supposed to be and what it's doing and all the constraints it's under. So I kind of toss that aside, and I just try to enjoy it as is.
Rob, jumping to you. What are your general thoughts of this season without spoilers? Oh, you're on mute.
Sorry. I'm kind of on the fence about it because there are moments that I actually quite enjoy, but stylistically, it's not the Western that the first 2 seasons were, right? Like it's removed itself from that Western motif into more of like a year 3 of Hawaii Five-0 SWAT action team, right? And so for that, in that regard, I kind of enjoyed some of the action and the fighting scenes of it. And I thought, oh, that's really cool. Like some of the stuff they did visually, I thought was phenomenal. But then it's a different show. So like, it's not the Mandalorian that I'm accustomed to. It's a different type of Star Wars show. And so I'm like, oh, it's got way better action than like Obi-Wan did, let's say, or even Book of Boba Fett. But it's not the Western aspect of what that I really enjoyed in the first 2 seasons because I'm a Western guy. I like Westerns. So I'm really kind of jumping on the fence. I'm like, I don't really know if I appreciate it for what it is, but it's not what I wanted it to be. But I'm not like chuffed by it, but I'm still just like, it's there. It was okay.
Do you feel this season and I guess in terms of I guess what we'd say is it's Iron Man 2. Like this is just a weird wrap-up season of all these other things because it had to get things moving along, and then kind of left you to maybe you'll go back to the Western without spoiling at the end of this. It was like, oh, we can kind of see it going back to that.
Yeah, but the weird thing was though is that this followed that Star Wars celebration or whatever it was they had in the UK, right? Just like a week and a half ago, where they kind of said the events of whatever comes out of Mandalorian season 3 then goes into Filoni's movie that he's creating. And so you can't now, it was really weird because like they're announcing.
They said it was 6 years away. That's like a long time from now.
No, I know, but you can't help though, but then somewhat be jaded while you're watching this, being like, okay, so they're setting us up for a movie. Is there a season 4 or not? Like, I think it was a bad timing. So like, I don't know. It felt, yeah, I guess it's the Iron Man 2. It's the, whatever. It just felt, or even the Iron Man 3, right? Where it's like, there was some to enjoy, but it wasn't what I wanted. And it was, Iron Man 3 was a Tony Stark movie. It wasn't an Iron Man movie. Mandalorian was not a Din Djarin story. It was something different.
Can I quote one of the greatest actors of our time and say 6 seasons in a movie? Is that the goal?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. 6 seasons in a movie. If there ever is who knows?
I think we can all agree, especially Andre and myself, where Dave Filoni stands. I think we both believe that he even has some mistakes along the way, but most of the time he gets it bang on. So I think that given him the opportunity, it was just, I think we've said it, if you go back to some of the old podcasts, my philosophy, Andre wants him to get it right away. I was always saying he need reps. He needs to do a few things along the way because you only get one shot, one chance, and if you screw it, it's over. So like you look at kind of those opportunities to make those type of movies. Like if you don't do a good job, they'll never give you another chance. Right. And he's not like a Ben Affleck who gets to say, "Oh, Ben Affleck, let me try again," or "I'll self-finance." This guy doesn't have the money to do it on his own, so he kind of went to that school of
anyone else would not come back from Geely or whatever that movie was.
There's some great stories about Ben Affleck where his agent's like, "Okay, we hit rock bottom, we're gonna get back up," and then dagnammit, that dude won an Oscar. So like, there's like nobody that can like. What are you gonna say about that? Like, he makes really smooth 80s movies, and that's it. Like, they're not good, they're not bad, they're just like, boom, these are Ben Affleck movies, and you're like, yep, I like them, I could watch them, but I'm not gonna worry about them, in the future. So nonetheless, Andre, you're the one that was kind of always been on the fence of the show. I think you had some valid criticisms about not feeling a Star Wars, not kind of being. This season was, at least in some aspects of it, very Star Wars-ish. What were your thoughts? Because I think people want to know, especially for this season. And
they also dropped 2 trash shows before this.
Yeah, honestly, I'm more impressed that you actually you did it. I was like, Andre's out. He's not gonna watch Mandalorian season 3, and then you're watching it. And I'm like, okay, let's go at it. I was shocked in the chat. Andre's like, you guys watching Mandalorian? I'm like, wait, are you watching Mandalorian? So give us your thoughts.
Before me, I come into work and Andre be like, "Oh, you watch that?" I'm like, "What the fuck? What's going on?"
I'll get to that after. But yeah, Andre, tell us.
All right, so yeah, I did watch this season, and partly I watched it because of what John said. He's like, it's like, now that you know what it is, what it's dealt with you for what it's given us for the first 2 seasons, I know what to expect. So just sit down and enjoy the ride. And part of it was, I'm like, when in our collective geek culture timeline have we ever had a Star Wars cartoon running and live action? So I'm watching Bad Batch in the morning and then come home watching Mandalorian in the evening on the same day. I'm like, I can't, as a fan of this stuff, like look at the walls, I'm like, I can't not do this. And the first couple episodes, I'm like, you know what? Amazing. It's given me, now that I know what it is, I'm on board. It's wicked. I'm like, yeah, this is the way. This is how you enjoy it. Just go. And then, as Rob mentioned, the theme of the show kind of changed, and what they were going with changed, and I was already on the train, so I couldn't get off until the end. And I would say it started better than it finished. I think it was a season that was very convoluted, but not in complexity, but because I really don't think they knew where they wanted to go. And it just gets there, and you're like, that's it. My biggest criticism of the show, I've mentioned many times on the podcast, was the writing. And hey, at least Jon Favreau's consistent. The writing has been bad in all 3 seasons. So again, spoiler free, I would say out of the 8 episodes, I really thoroughly enjoyed 3 of them. But I think, as John mentioned, I really wish they could have just upped the writing a little bit throughout. And I think they had enough characters and enough plot to do it, but I don't think they really wanted to polish it. I think they wanted to get it out and get there, and the script and the dialogue and the motivations weren't where they should have been, in my opinion.
It's funny because I think that the show outside of this season has been very well regarded for the normies, the people that aren't really that hardcore, that when I'm watching episode 7 and Andre's watching it too, we see a character who I'm like, oh, here we go, talking about, you know, a special character, other character, and I'm like, I'm in on the Easter eggs, I'm down. But I think that there's a balance between like too much tech space talk and the other side. And I think when we go to talk about Star Trek, you could say that that's where kind of the divergent goes. Star Trek doesn't hide the fact that they talk about nacelles and they're like, oh, gel packs, and they go really into the terminology and stuff. But sometimes that can really get people like, I don't know what this is, I really don't care. And how does that affect kind of the new entry point for fandom? So it's funny. I was all in, watching every episode as is. I know Rob was completely, and John were like, yeah, at the end. I was surprised that Andre and myself were consistently watching it every Wednesday it came out. And Rob and John were like, we're doing the podcast, right? Oh, I guess we should watch the episodes. So clearly you two were just like, I'm just waiting for this to...
No, I had extenuating... I watch it with my son, who is, as a teenager now, has way more of a social life. And now I'm trying to navigate around his schedule to be able to put these things in.
Sure,
okay.
Blame it on your son.
All right. Let's get to this thing. Okay, John, out of a score of 10, what are you giving this season of The Mandalorian?
Here comes John.
Can I give it 2 different scores based on like the actual show and the character I really love in the show? I guess not. All right. So overall, this season, I have to give it like a 7.5, I think. And I want to boost it up because of Katie Sackhoff, but I'll leave it at 7.5.
I'm sure
she did have a quote about that, John. So I guess you're that 5%. Yeah. Those of you who don't know, people that. Rob, where are you at?
I think 7.5 is a fair number. I'm actually surprised that John. I'm actually surprised that John came in at that. I think it's a fair number. Like I'm really on the fence. I'm of two minds, but I think I'm going to stick with a 7.5 because I do think, to your point, Stu, it's a bit more accessible for people because it's not as genre as the first 2 seasons, so I can appreciate that. But I do wish it was like the first 2, to be honest with you. So I'll stick with 7.5.
Andre?
Yeah, this is tough because the show is it's beautiful. Like we've never seen space battles like this on the small screen. You know, this is movie caliber stuff. You know, but then some of the other stuff. So like I'm trying to think of all the episodes I really enjoyed. And then there was episodes that I wanted to turn off, like, you know. So I would probably say I'd give it 6 out of 10.
Well, I think that's solid. Surprised.
Yeah, that's you know, it's funny because I'm a little more gracious to this show because, to Andre's point, I am like the river, accepting it and flowing and going forward. I think they had too many things they had to tie up, and they were, without spoiling, handcuffed by the existing stuff they had to resolve that they set up in season 1, season 2, and now they've kind of wrapped everything in a bow for season 3, which should lead to maybe something more interesting in season 4. So I kind of 7.5 seems right, but I'm gonna go 8 because I kind of enjoyed. I'm not gonna lie, episode 6, which most people probably hated, that police procedural show where they were like just weird. I loved it so much. Like that's
probably my favorite. That's probably my favorite.
Is that the one with Jack Black and Lizzo?
Yeah. Honestly, I would just want a Jedi show like that, where 2 Jedis just basically going around solving cases, doing stuff. Like we love procedural cop shows.
Yeah.
Give me Star Wars procedural cop show. I don't even need a lightsaber. Just let them go in. Like if you saw, they did it in the cartoon version with Dooku when Dooku was with with Qui-Gon and they were on the dealing with things. I'm like, I want this show. I want Jedis being sent all over the galaxy as peacekeepers doing stuff. I'm good with the big battles. I've seen enough of them. You can't. There's only so many times you can send 300 CGI people waving a lightsaber, like doing stuff back and forth. Give me a cop show where there's two Jedi trying to use their guile and like training to like figure out what's going on. That's what I want.
You want the Jedi's version of Bunk and McNulty from The Wire.
I want Count Dooku to come in and be like, she, and like just swearing, and then they're like taking their I guess their futuristic pens and putting in their mouths and like sorting things out. Like I want all of that. That's what I want, and that's what will refresh Star Wars in my mind. So that's my dream or my hope. And that's what I was like, you gave me this, and I'm like, you know what, that's enough for this whole entire series. I'm good. Let's go in. Clearly, I think I'm all about everyone continuing to watch the show. So, Rob, John, quickly, are you gonna watch season 4 or you're out? Do you care anymore?
Yeah, I'm gonna watch season 4. I feel like they might have to rename it after the season, though, depending on where they're going. I don't like this false advertising. To Rob's point of the first 2 seasons being almost a completely different show. But yeah, I'll still watch it. I think they delivered enough this season that I
without
will
spoiling.
watch it.
I think they resolved it in the last 3 minutes of the episode. It'll go back to the way it was because they set it up very well.
Yeah,
where they're like,
yeah, well, I'm fine if it becomes this other show, but maybe rename it so that people aren't thinking. So you can slide Mandalorian and Grogu aside and have other characters get a bit more time on screen or something along those lines.
Rob, are you gonna watch more of this?
Yeah, I'll watch it again. Yeah. You know why? You want to know why? Because they'll cut a wicked freaking trailer for it, and then they'll release one hell of a poster like we got for this season where Mando's like, double barrel and like flying out. You're like, wow, that looks sick. And, yeah, of course. I'm a mark. They'll have me hook, line, and sinker, and then we'll do another, podcast. Like, I didn't realize it was going to be a musical. So that's
Andre?
That's a tough one. I think people should still watch it if they're enjoying it. I think I am gonna follow up on the next season just because I think the show has become a springboard for their other shows and stuff. And again, without spoilers, I think there's some potential to build up some of the ancillary characters, and I think that's going to happen. I expected it more so in this season, so I'll give it another. I think I'd give it another go, hoping again to see those other characters or see where those other characters are going to go and end up.
All right, we're gonna go full spoilers now for those at home. John told the thing because we're gonna go into it because outside of the weird special guest appearances that showed up. John, throw up the thing if you have for all the people watching on YouTube. If not, you've been warned on the people listening at home. John, what was your favorite thing this season? Full spoilers. Like, what is your favorite?
My favorite thing, 100%, is Bo-Katan, Katie Sackhoff as Bo-Katan. She really stole the show. So much so that I didn't care. Mandalorian. Speaking of Iron Man 3, Mandalorian and Grogu could have taken off after episode 3. They could have just bounced. And I could have followed the remaining 6 or whatever 5 episodes of her journey, which was probably the best part of the show. And my favorite episode was Good Cop, Mandalorian Cop. So I would watch that show for sure. And they could do it. They could do a procedural, and they would have more time to hone the formula of that show. That we could probably get some real gems out of it. And I'm always down for a cop show. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah, because I think they did. Yeah. Back in the day, they did someone did a spoof. I think we watched in the store once called Troopers, where they made like a cop show where people were wearing a stormtrooper costume, and you're like doing the Imperial stuff and just like so like it's not a new idea, but again, I don't need more Imperial stuff. I just want more Jedi stuff doing it. Like I just want to see how they do things. Anyways, Rob, what about you? What was your favorite thing of this season?
I'm really looking forward to you asking me what my least favorite thing was, but for my favorite thing, listen, okay, so once you've resigned yourself to understand that it's not going to be a Western, and you see that it's going to go into the action realm, then you want them to do a really good job. And I thought that episodes 7 and 8, like that whole battle, those fight scenes, seeing Pedro Pascal's stunt double, using martial arts and everything else like that. Like I was like, okay, if you're gonna do it, do it. And I thought that they did it. Like I actually was invested in the action of it, in the suspense. Like, when the door closed and you see the red, was it the Guardians or whatever they're called?
Yeah.
Praetorian Guards?
Yeah. Slow-mo bros.
Guards. Thanks. And you see them going against Grogu and the door closes and he's in the, in the robot suit. I was like, oh no. Like, because, I kind of thought, are they going to set something up where like he's captured again? I'm like, oh no, this is like another, it's Kim in a cougar trap in 24 season 2. And then so you're like, oh, what's happening? I was just like, so for all of that, for me, like those 2 episodes, the action that they did overall, like that's where all that money went. You could tell they put a ton of cash into that. So that was probably my favorite part. Of
you weren't worried about a RoboCop death scene?
Yeah.
No, I think we all know that was an ode to Star Wars Phantom Menace. So like it is like a thing that they saw, except for he wasn't crossing his legs thinking about what he'd do next before fighting Darth Maul. I do understand there are some people that are griping about Din Djarin as like this guy's a chump, like in the episode just getting punked, beat up, and then dragged away. But again, I think it was like a nuanced, small thing where you need it for the story. Like he can't be awesome. Even Schwarzenegger Commando gets knocked out, but he still punches everyone in the face afterwards. So there needed to be some sort of reason for him to say, yeah, he can get knocked out like a regular human being, but in close quarter combat, like he can adapt, he can adjust, he can do things. He's still a Mandalorian, and we have to respect the fact that these are trained warriors, which I think the biggest gripe is that you don't necessarily feel that's the case in the show until he actually starts doing. Yeah. Because even in season 2, when he's fighting others, like he nicks himself. I'm like, well, I guess he does because he's holding the Darksaber, but really, you don't feel like he's a real seasoned warrior until he starts taking out these dudes with shields and stuff. You're like, oh yeah, right. You learn how to fight. You know what you're doing. Because you are actually a bounty hunter at some standpoint. So it is nice to kind of give him that bit to shine, but it was a long burn. And it's the daunting thing about foreshadowing.
24 episodes.
It's foreshadowing like DS9. It's like, trust me, it's the best Star Trek show. You just have to slog through the first 2 seasons that are terrible. But trust me, it gets better from after season 3. It's like, why am I doing this? You're asking me to commit to 44 garbage episodes before it gets good. I don't know if that's worth it. So especially when people's time is thing. Like that's my biggest hill when trying to get people to watch Deep Space Nine. I'm like, it's the best Star Trek. However, caveat, the first 2 seasons are so bad. You just need to, have some value while watching it. Andre, what was your most enjoyable favorite thing of this season?
I'd probably say the second episode where he gets to Mandalore and that creature, the robot guy, captures him. And so it looked so good. Like it was just a great looking, not only was the set looking good, it looked great. And then when Bo-Katan came and saved him, that was a sick fight, and at that moment, like that was the second episode. And I'm like, okay, cool. If you're going to give me video game fetch quest style and you're going to do it to this caliber, like, okay, I'm okay with it. And I like I said, I really enjoyed the first 2 episodes, but that episode in particular, I really thought was done pretty well. Yeah.
I think to your point, Andre, like the cop episode was my favorite. I did like the Mines of Mandalore because, we saw, those of us who watched the cartoon know what it is, what the beauty and the majestic nature of a Mandalore, but the normies that don't are like, yeah, whatever. It is what it is. So I was happy to see.
Well, yeah, I'll take Lake Ontario, whatever.
Yeah,
it's all
honestly, I'm happy to see a lot of like I think we talked before. A lot of the things that Dave has put down in the Clone Wars cartoon show and all the stuff in the Mandalorian culture is kind of coming into fruition of this season. It's just one of those things where the shorthand is if you've seen the cartoons, at the end of the day, as much as Andre and I have tried 1,000 times, people don't want to watch cartoons. So it's really hard to hold the clown and be like, this show's amazing. All right, cool. What's it called? Okay, but it's a cartoon. Ooh, you lost me at cartoon. Those are for kids. So it is like a big hill as opposed to Star Trek TNG, which we're gonna go to momentarily. It's like live action. It's kind of ingrained in you. So the short form there is a lot more manageable because you've probably watched. There was 178 episodes. You probably watched like at least 20 of them in your life, so you kind of understand, as opposed to The Mandalorian, which requires a lot more, I guess, homework.
But
John,
Filoni wasn't really involved with this season, though, right? Like he was off making Ahsoka. He was,
but he's still like the characters, Bo-Katan, the Darksaber, all that stuff. Like it's there. Special shout out though, Axe Wolves, man, that dude is awesome. Like I just want to say, Axe Wolves is great. I was like, oh, this guy's come in. Like when you see him on the screen, he's like, yeah, you lost the Darksaber. I'm like, yeah, your points are valid. Bo-Katan, you should have took this chump out. What are you doing? But at the end, when push came to shove, he's like, dude, she beat me in combat. There's an order of command. I thought he was gonna be like the bad guy at the end and be like, ha ha, I'm gonna take the ship, and like, no, he was a cool dude. And at the end, when he was yelling for Mandalore, I'm like, dude, I want to be there too. I want to yell for Mandalore. So I thought
he was supposed to die, eh? He was supposed to die in previous season. Yeah, he was supposed to die. He was supposed to be gone. Yeah, I forgot what part he was supposed to die at, but he was supposed to be gone. Probably
like the ship crashing into the world. Which, by the way, it's an $8 trillion ship that doesn't have a horn, and he can't be like, get out of the way!
Rob's like, you don't want to know what the deductible is on that one. Okay. We've got some good stuff. I think, we saw, and one more thing, the other one was clearly, as Andre said, jumping off point. There's a lot of rebels, whether it's Thrawn, whether it's one of basically all the characters you're going to see in Ahsoka, which basically all the rebel characters essentially are going to be there. So it could be interesting how they kind of bring that together, because even Zev, when I saw it in the episode, I'm like, wow, he looks good. I'm like, but there's a difference between good for 3 minutes and good for 300 minutes. So it's like, if he's in part of the show for a longer term, like that's when you start seeing things fall apart. If he just stands there and nods for a bit, you're like, oh, that's great. The moment he starts moving is when you can see CGI or how much they spend. And if it goes off the cliff, it goes off the cliff really quickly. So I'm excited to see that. John, tell me what you disliked.
There was an episode in there that basically they went, I think, where'd they go? Did they go to Coruscant or something like that?
They did. They did.
It was like a good like 2/3 of the episode. But I cheated. I got the heads up, and I basically watched the first 10 minutes of that episode and the last 10 minutes. So it was actually a really tight 22-25 minutes. So actually,
you don't care about Dr. Prashant?
I did not, and it didn't even come up later that I didn't watch that part, right? So if it comes up in season 4, then I guess I'm boned. But I got away with saving myself like a good 30 minutes there. So stuff like
most
that.
Of the 40.
Yeah. So 40 minutes like that, the divergence like that. Like to Rob's point, the fact that they have taken Mandalorian was very, very. I feel like he was barely in this season. That might be like, I guess what you aim for, and you're like, yeah, needed more of him, but I was too busy distracted by other things. But yeah, there is the I don't know if you guys are gonna pick an episode, but 100% that bird episode with the rocket packs and the whole like how come that kid wasn't digested in two, and then the awkward moment where they're like, oh, you have to take your food and you go out eat in the dark corner. It was just some funny moments that as a result of them writing some funny stuff that these characters have to abide by. That makes you question how they live everyday life. But yeah,
how to get their hair cut.
Yeah. Like that guy had a kid with the Toys R Us helmet, right? Like, what are they doing? They just leave their helmets on and knock boots. Like there's a lot of questions that come up when they start talking about stuff like this. But
Rob.
Oh yeah, so no episode. I think that was episode 3, right? The Divergent episode with the doctor. I was like, oh, okay. I kind of thought that there would be a payoff for that at the end. Like I thought it would tie in some capacity, and it was such a loose tie-in. Like it was just like, I think it was like I don't know if it's the second last.
It's essentially Rob. There's another trilogy coming. So we can't be too good, and they're still bad guys. So these are the new bad guys.
No, I was just irritated. I was like, it was like I just spent, like, to John's point. Well, even though he didn't watch the whole thing, but you spent it was like one of the longest episodes of the series too, of the season, and you're like, I've just spent like the second longest episode for nothing. Like it was like who cares? Like what? Like there was like. Between that and Moff Gideon all of a sudden having Iron Man armor, I was like, I don't understand what's going on.
Rob, you're really going to be sad when I send you a Christmas gift of Imperial biscuits. You're really going to feel sad when, that happens.
Yeah, and let me tell you something. Physics dictates if you were jumping off a train at that speed, your body would be mush. So
the galaxy far, far away. They have the Force. Whatever. Who cares?
Yeah.
It is what it is. It's the same reason that the people forget that there's Jedi like speed running, and they just forget after the first movie where Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon run away from the droids. The rest of the movies, no one ever uses it again. They're like, oh yeah, they got Jedi speed. Never mind. That was only for like that one scene. When you're running with Order 66, can't you just like super speed run away and jump away from people? Nah, just do your thing. All right, Andre.
Well, let's beat episode 3. Continue to beat this dead horse, because literally that was the turning point episode for me. I'm watching it and I'm like, this is tonally like wrong. Like it didn't fit what we had seen, and it had a very Andor vibe to it, and I didn't finish watching Andor because of that. Like it was just boring. But I'm gonna state a couple different reasons than what the other guys had for it. If you go back and listen to some of our comments before in other podcasts, I always said I want longer episodes. So when I saw the runtime for this episode, I think it was 43 minutes. I'm super excited. Now, had they given us 43 or 45 minutes of Bo-Katan and Din Djarin talking, and he's asking her questions about what her way of the Mandalorian is, I'm 100% in. Put them on, like, flying in her ship, like, take the same premise of all the crap with the doctor and the other person, and I'm in. But then you give us two characters that, we barely kind of see, didn't have a point, and you change the tone and you stretch it out. Like this thing was stretched. They could have done this in 5 minutes if they really wanted to do it. It could have been a 5-minute scene. But I think my biggest issue with it is, and I understand the point. Please don't think I don't understand it. But I hate the fact that they are trying to make the New Republic seem as evil and as inefficient as like the Empire. Because literally you have the moment where the Dr. Pershing or whatever, he's doing a job that a droid could do. And then you see a droid has the job that a human should do, is how are you feeling? And he's got to say, oh, I'm feeling okay. And you're like, I get it. And then you're going to tell me that the New Republic's going to give people a number instead of a name, right? And then they're going to mind wipe a guy and leave a former Imperial just to, like, the dial shouldn't even have had that override to go up. Like, if you're just going to shock somebody, why would you have it to brain fry, right? So all of these things, I'm like, yeah, you guys are planting the seeds that the Republic is no better than the Empire. And in my eyes, we had a great trilogy where we fell in love with these characters, where they fought for a better galaxy and they fought for what was good. And then in one episode, you're going to show that, no, it's really quite the same. In fact, it's worse because they don't even see it. And I'm like, I get it. Maybe my idea is too goody two shoes or too fairy tale, but I don't want Star Wars to be reflecting the grim reality of kind of what we are. There's a whole bunch of other sci-fi that does that, and that's it. Star Wars doesn't have that. So it's, again, one of the reasons I didn't really continue with Andor, and then they brought it into this. So it was just like, honestly, I was going to hard eject out of the season then, and I stuck around. But yeah, that was the thing I hated the most about this season.
It's funny you say that, because it was a little longer than expected. Maybe it was just because Coruscant is bad at its core, and that's why when they blew it up in the movie, they're like, "Yeah, you don't care about Coruscant. Look at all these rich douchebags on the planet. They all deserve to die." Because I was like, in the other movie, spoiler alert, and when they blew up Coruscant, I'm like, "Oh my god, they blew up Coruscant. Isn't that where all the good people live?" No, it's where the rich people live. It's basically the 1%. It's like, oh, so don't worry about it. Coruscant blowing up is no longer a big deal. It's one of those things where I found that this episode was or the whole season was basically a checklist of, we gotta set up the fact that the new bad guys that are coming up for these movies. We gotta set up that the Imperials are still around. We have to set up that the Mandalorians will come back together. We have to set up the fact that with Moff Gideon's there. With this, everything just felt like a checklist of things we have to address, which felt like oh, okay, cool. You guys just going through the motions. And if I could just hard skip to season 4 of The Mandalorian, which is basically what they set up, it's, hey, Teva, Carson, here, we know they're Imperials. Sign me up. I'll do what you can't do. Just go around hunting bad guys, truly bad guys, not bounty hunting as in oh, whatever. Let me hunt down Imperials as a true bounty hunter. Then that's kind of what I want to see. So I'm excited to see if that's the case. So, and
on that note, Stu, I really hope with Carson, I hope that they segue him into a show with the Rangers, whatever their
squad is. But we had a problem, Andre.
No, but I'm saying I think they should replace that show with him, because he was great in it. That episode 5, that was cool. And there's really, he's a really cool character.
I agree.
And stuff. And I hope that's where they're going with it. And I hope
it's really weird. I don't remember Carson Daly being in this episode.
Captain Carson Teva.
Paul.
Yeah.
All right. You're all alive.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I get it. I think we had that lined up, but then Carla, we had someone screw it up through mistakes, of, we can say mistakes, but I think
mistakes were made.
Yeah, mistakes were made.
That's putting it lightly.
Yeah, I think Paul is a little busy with Avatar, but I think without saying that, John and Andre will always welcome him to go to the comic book store and hang out one day. If he's around, in the GTA, swing by the store. Andre and John would love to say hello to you. Open invitation to you, Paul.
Have you guys though looked at any of the marketing of this show since you finished watching it?
No.
If you go on Disney Plus, Instagram page or anything else, they have these little vignettes. But it's interesting, the marketing, the font they use to highlight certain scenes, the scene where Din Djarin is talking to Grogu and he's like, I know what you're capable of, and he had the paintball wrister thing. It's all flashing, it's neon colors and very late 80s, early 90s vibe. It looks like a Saved by the Bell. It's very interesting, the tone that they're trying to use to market this show now that the season is over. I just found it to be really fascinating when I started looking at it. I was like, wow, it's bizarre. You didn't see any of that. It's very poppy almost, right? So I don't know, just something I was keep your eye out for.
Yeah, it's very interesting that's kind of the direction they're going in, but again.
And if you happen to hear a bunch of screaming behind me, it's only because my son's got a friend over and they're watching the Leaf game, and the Leafs just scored. So, woo! So if you hear screaming, that's what it is. I'm fairly certain in about 3 minutes, there's gonna be a lot of crying happening. So.
No, jinx it.
like yeah, it's one of those things where I'm kind of interested to see where the show goes, but I think that the world building aspect of it is heavy because you have, Andre, to your point, we saw Timo Morrison say, hey, you know, budget cuts and maybe we're not going to get like Book of Boba Fett season 2, and I went there going, yeah, that's the reason why you're not going to get a budgeting cuts. Yeah, man, you know, tough luck there. We have the Acolyte, we have you know, Ahsoka, we have the Mandalorian. Like, we have a lot of Star Wars stuff. So
Skeleton Crew or something.
Skeleton Crew would, and they're just like,
oh,
funny?
That's sorry, we've got Acolyte,
yep,
Ahsoka, and Andor.
Yep.
The triple A's, like they can't, and then Book of Boba Fett. Nope, can't have any B shows. Nope, we're stuck. We got 3 A titles. That's it.
Yep. And then Skeleton Crew. So like, you know, that with I think Jude Law's that one. I just think they're like, yeah, you just need a good actor, and unfortunately for that one, you know, it's a little rough. So all right, I think we're all kind of talked out Star Wars, and I think that we appreciated this random like cameos. We can talk about them at another time and date, but yeah, watching Christopher Lloyd, watching Lizzo, watching Jack Black, watching Ahmed Best, like these are things where I'm like, oh, it's nice to see the people here with or without in the universe. It's all fine. It was really weird to see the Ladies Man. That was the only one where I'm like, this really
really that was great. Tomatoes. I was like, first Paul shows up, and I'm like, whoa, Paul's here, and then the camera pans over to Tim Meadows, and I'm like, yo, I love Tim Meadows.
He's like, yeah, I don't know about that. I'm like, I just sat there going, why is Tim Meadows here? And I was laughing. I'm like, bureaucracy's bureaucracy, regardless of which. But I'm like, yeah, you can't do that. I'm like, anyway,
yeah, they should have David Spade going, okay, yeah. From his
stapler
office.
sitting there doing the photocopier thing, the bit from the day. Okay, so let's go into Star Trek Picard because I think that has gotten a little more love. But I think the hot take would be it's because season 1 and season 2 were so bad that season 3 had to be good. So we'll jump up around. Rob, I think you had mentioned to us like a week and a half ago, like not even a week ago. Andre, Stu, Picard season 3, and then Andre said, "Don't bother watching anything, just watch season 3." And then I was like, "Yeah, just watch episode 1 of season 2, and you're good." But you went through all of it. So briefly give us your journey because you're fresh in Picard. Andre and me are not as fresh, but give us your general freshness feeling of watching 3 seasons of Picard.
Well, no, so I only watched. Yeah, so I the first season I saw when it came out, and I really didn't like it. Like I was just like I was bored, silly, and then everybody kept saying how great season 3 was. Like I had zero interest in watching season 2, and everybody kept saying how great season 3 was. And I was like, I don't know. And I think I actually messaged you guys. And I'm like, is it even worth it? And when Andre was like, yeah, it's totally cool, I was like, fuck, I'm probably going to hate it then. Like, it's great. And I'm like, yeah, it's my polar opposite. But then everybody kept saying, no, you should watch it. And I was like, all right. But then I see the completionist in me. I couldn't just skip season 2. It would have been bugging me in the back of my head. So yes, I went through and I crushed season 2 in like a couple of days and then watched season 3. Personally, I actually enjoyed season 2 more than season 1. Although season 2 has its issues, a lot of issues. I actually thought it was funny. Like I thought it was interesting, and it reminded me of like Star Trek 4 kind of, right? Like,
of course, yeah.
And so I was like, I was like, okay, I can kind of see, I can appreciate it for what it was. But man, Picard season 3, like really surprised me. It reminded me of like some of the, and I know that, like yourself, Stu, and a lot of the, the people who watch this show or whatever, or friends of the shop, they're deep into Star Trek. Like they will rewatch those episodes over and over and over again. That's just not me. I've watched a lot of it. I've watched all of the seasons of every show. I think Voyager was always my guilty pleasure because it was just like, it was always on double episodes when I could, in the afternoons. But I loved the movies. Like I've always really, really, really liked the movies. And I found that this season of season 3 really felt like one nice long movie. obviously, listen, it's 10 episodes, so there's going to be some ebbs and flows, but it felt really rewarding to me as a Trek movie watcher, or a Trek television show watcher. I really enjoyed a couple of those Next Generation movies. So, so overall, I really liked it. I was surprised at how much I liked it. I was surprised at how much of a deviation it was from the first 2 seasons. And if you have not watched any of the Picard series whatsoever, you actually do not need to watch any of season 1 or 2. And I'm telling you that as somebody who's watched them all, like legit. They barely.
Someone that did believe Andre and just decided to do it. He's like, I got to see for myself.
Yeah, you barely have to. No, because I got stuck because I had watched season 1. But don't fall into that trap. Just watch season 3 and enjoy it for what
John,
it is.
This is the scenario in Seinfeld where this plate is hot. You're like, how hot? And you touch it. It's like, I told you, it's hot. You're like,
I know, but I'd already watched season 1. That's the problem. In my Neanderthal brain, if I had skipped season 2, after this one, I would have been like, I got to go back and watch season 2. And that would have just ruined it for me. So,
John, what is your relationship with Star Trek TNG? Like, what about you?
So TNG is the one that I kind of grew up knowing the most about, but I was never an avid watcher. So I've got every episode that I did see. My cousins and stuff were big fans. They would always be on. Every episode that I did see, I did actually thoroughly enjoy it. So I don't know why I didn't catch into it. Maybe it just wasn't on TV where I was growing up. But I have the utmost respect, especially for this cast. And since we were doing this, I was like, oh, maybe I'll cheat and I'll watch episode 1 and then watch the finale. But when I fired up episode 1, when I saw all the returning cast on screen together at once, I was like, no. I think I got to give this some time. So unfortunately, I didn't get to watch it. So I'll just be listening to you guys talk about it. But seeing them all together on the screen again at once, like Jordan LaForge, like was doing the narration at the beginning, kind of recapping everything that was going on. You see Worf there, you see Riker, you see Picard, everybody, and it just looked amazing. So it's really cool to see that something can come back like this, and to hear from you and Andre and Rob that it is a really good 3rd season. I think I owe it that I should actually probably sit down and watch it proper. So it looks fantastic, and overall the reception. When we were talking about Mandalorian and all the kind of stuff throughout the weeks, everyone would always chime in, like on the Sidekick show, they would chime in and go, "What about Picard season 3?" And me and Rob weren't caught up to it, so we probably should have caught up, because everyone was literally just going, "Hey, you gotta love Picard, is amazing." So I look forward to hearing what you guys, what everyone else thinks about the season.
Andre, your non-spoilerly thoughts? I think John didn't spoil anything because other poster shows everyone together. So it's like that's
I literally watched episode 1 and it flies into the intro and you see all of them on the bridge, right? So
non-spoiler review. If you like Star Trek Next Generation, and watched it, grew up watching it, watched it on Netflix, caught up into it, watched half of it, like this cast, like the original, that original crew, then this show it's made for you by someone who loves it, understands it, and is passionate about it, and that shows in every episode of this show. It is literally, it's a special piece of television. Like this is, I don't think we're ever going to see anything quite like this again. And for me, it's probably up there in the top 3 TV series / seasons of my lifetime that I enjoy. I'm not going to say of all time, but this particular season, these 10 episodes are some of the best television I have ever watched. And
And that's
flawless victory.
You're a big fan of the droids.
That is
cartoon.
crazy.
Which one?
And that's saying something because you're a huge fan of the droids cartoon. So
yeah, that's in the top 3 as well.
Theme song.
Well, the intro song is such a banger. You can't say no. Trouble Again, right, Rob? It's one of those things where the show kind of got me thinking a lot about my TNG, and I think you already know, I love DS9, and it cherry-picked a lot of modern television's tropes in terms of like it's a serialized show where everything's connected, and that's where I have found that with DS9, that's where it excelled, and where Voyager and TNG kind of faltered. But that was never in their game plan. That's not what they wanted. Their mission statement was every episode's a new thing. We're going to reuse these caves over and over. Here's the cave. Here's the holodeck. This is everything we're doing. This is Star Trek. And I totally get that was the vibe back in the 90s. As I've watched Star Trek again in TNG, I found that there were a lot of sketchy episodes. I was like, wow, a lot of these episodes are not good. Storylines are wonky, but I think it fits to the kooky nature of the fact that they are traveling, exploring, and things are going to happen. I enjoyed this show because I think to the bow on it, we got to see these actors one more time in these roles doing it. And I think it sets up something that maybe in the future down the line for a potential spin-off show that we kind of like. It did bring back some characters from the other shows, spoiler, whatever, some that worked, some that didn't, and some I had to question. It's like, what's the purpose of this? But again, that's fan casting. That's kind of what it's about. That's the nostalgic member berries of Picard and what it does well. It does a really good job of, remember this? And you're like, yeah, I do remember this. And it does it at a very well. Went back to the roots where, say, in season 2, they weren't really on a ship that often, which is what the problem was. And then like season 3, let's do mainly on the ship. And I was all on board. The fact that it was basically always in a Star Trek, like in the Titan hallway or somewhere on the bridge or in the mess hall or something. That reminds me of Star Trek because they were poor. We only have the ship set and the cave set. Everything else we don't really have stuff for. So that's what Star Trek's going to be. So I enjoyed that. Really brought me back to the TNG vibes. I appreciate what Strange New Worlds is doing. I appreciate the fact that it's spending money in Greater Toronto area. That one I appreciate too. I like the fact that they're on like real life locations as opposed to the void of Mandalorian.
Discovery.
Sorry?
Discovery?
Yeah. I kind of like Strange New Worlds Discovery, like they're in real places because you feel like even in Star Wars where Andor, like they're in places, whether it's parts of Europe. Sorry?
It's tactile. Like you actually.
Yeah, like one of the airports was basically like a Ferrari like head office building. And they're like, yeah, we're just gonna use this. I'm like, it's great. It just looks real, and it's kind of what harkens back to Star Wars 2, where they actually went to set. They went to Iceland. They went to these countries to do shooting, and not necessarily a soundstage. Although there is a soundstage in Redwood, California, but nonetheless, it harkens that. So I was excited to see everything. I thought, to everyone's point, acting was fantastic. The writing was good. It kind of nicked everything you wanted from terms of stuff, but at the end, it's kind of like, I'm glad they just kind of, the villain was not really the villain. It was the whole point of the journey was just them getting back together. I was just more upset. We'll get to that later on. How long it took. I was surprised by them. I'm like watching the episode. I'm like, what episode? Where is everyone? Like, why are they all not together? Yeah. It took so long. Where I'm like, I'm watching this, and I'm like, it's surprisingly a lot longer in the series before. And I won't say what episode it is, but I assume like really early I'd see everyone. So, but we'll go to that. So I'm gonna go to Rob. Out of 10, how are you rating the show? Season 3.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a 9.
Woo!
Yeah.
Look at that.
What a
contrast.
Andre?
Yeah, like it's flawless. Like to be honest with you,
is it gonna be a John special?
Are you gonna give it 11?
Yeah, it's a 12 out of 10.
Yeah,
it's like it's honestly it's legit better than perfect, because they will not. It's a crossroads. It's this perfect moment in time where the cast is all at the right age. They're all at the right time. You won't be able to pull this off again. All of them are still around. You've got a writer who they brought him back to write this. He righted the wrongs of the first 2 seasons of the show. Was able to write a story that brought back all of the original cast. Like, these guys weren't going to come back, right? But he wrote something because what's his name who plays Worf? Michael Dorn.
Michael Dorn, yeah.
He wasn't going to come back.
Yeah.
Right. And he wrote a story. Even Patrick Stewart said, I don't want to just redo TNG. That's why I think season 1 and 2 are different. But this story was so good, it gets there. And again, like the nuance of, like you said, Stu, picking moments from all the different Star Trek series, the modern ones, and then saying, hey, I can weave these together, right? And from visually and just I gotta say this because the score and the stuff, those moments when you heard the Next Generation theme weaved into when the crew or the Enterprise was doing something, man, it honestly, it's 12 out of 10 because they know what they have and they utilized all that they had. Compared to Star Wars, they're like, yeah, let's throw this John Williams score out. Let's throw away these legacy characters and let's not respect them. This had all of it, and you actually had a group of actors that you could tell like each other in real life, enjoy working together, and we're back to the reunion. The only time you're going to get anything close to this is if oh, hey, guess what? You two are disbanded, but they're back together, and they're young enough that they can still play. Sometimes you get a reunion of a rock band, and you're like, you guys, you're just too old to rock this. This was perfect. So 12 out of 10.
I think I fall in line with Rob. I think it's a good 9. Just because I think like the pacing was a little off. I think it got, but to your point, Andre, like I liked kind of things. I'm just more upset with the way they use some characters, but that's just me because I have attachments. But we'll go into the spoiler section because they did somebody dirty, and I'm like, really? Like you have to do it this way? Like this is so hot garbage. And it's a big circle for our boy Alex Kirkman, who for a long time some people were not fans with him because again, with his he did the Star Trek film that some people did not like. He did Revenge of the Fallen, which people didn't like, Cowboys and Aliens, and then now he's been like, he's been the figurehead, like full circle. He was a writer on Xena, Warrior Princess, and Hercules. So now and Fringe, and then now he is kind of the guy that's kind of running all these Star Trek shows, whether it's Discovery, Picard, Strange New Worlds. He's kind of that overall person working with all these people.
of Star Trek right now.
Yeah, he is that guy. And for someone who, did the, all these kind of interesting shows beforehand, like again, I'm sure he has all that money from Hawaii Five-0 that he doesn't have to do anything anymore. But guy wants to do more. So we're gonna go into full spoilers right now because I think we have a lot to do, especially Star Trek.
Did he not do the first 2 seasons? How come the first 2 seasons are so radically different?
Because they didn't have good writers. They didn't honestly. It's like I think this guy's got a 40-60 track record for good Star Trek.
Well,
right?
I think at the end of the day,
I think he's a big reason why Discovery was all up and down, and it's not getting canceled prematurely, but it's not living up to its thing, right? So.
I think the record broke with Enterprise. When
he didn't do Enterprise, did he?
No, but like before, it was always like 7 seasons was a given for Star Trek shows. You're like, oh, all of them got it, and then with Enterprise like 5. So now it's fallen to like Enterprise got 5. Seems about right. 5 for Discovery. That's where they're at. I think that for Strange New Worlds, I'd be shocked if it only went 5 seasons. I think it's going to go the distance. Strange New Worlds.
Well, it's shorter seasons though. It's only 10 episode seasons, right?
Still, but like I think the cost is much more different for that show compared to the old ones, where it was like soundstage of the Enterprise. Like they got to look like Stranger Worlds goes to locations. All like when they go, whether it's our alma mater at York University, Andre, or whether it's the Science Center in Toronto. It's a thing where they actually go and do things. So it's a different production cost. And if you saw the trailer for the new season, you see a character inside of like on I think they're on like Yonge Street in a store, and you're like, oh yeah, like I've been to that store before. I think it's like the Adidas store across from the crosswalk in front of the Eden Center. I'm like, oh, this is where they're at now. So it is what it is. Let's go into the spoilers, because I think again we can talk more about it. So please, John, throw the thing up. So if you have seen it, we're gonna go into it. Rob, what was your favorite part of Picard season 3?
Okay, actually, I gotta instead of singling out one specific part, while watching this, I turned 47. Right, like I was blowing through this.
Yeah,
and I know Andre just had a birthday, and he's just a couple years older than me. We haven't hit the 50 stage yet. But we're at, and I can't speak for Andre, but for me, I feel like I'm getting to a point where I kind of know who I am a little bit better than I did way back in the day. And the older you get, and you guys will get there, the more you start to kind of question, what have I done, and who am I now, and who will I be, and what is my path forward? What am I doing? And I found that the characters that they brought back for this series, it felt like they knew who they were. Like all that time away, like we, again, you can say you grew up with them or whatever. In Next Generation, you watched them in those 4 movies they did, or 5 movies. But it felt like they finally, all of them, were super comfortable in their character, in their skin. And it felt kind of refreshing for me. It was like almost like cathartic watching that you didn't look like you were watching actors portraying these characters. They weren't going over the top. They weren't, it wasn't Shakespearean. They were just being themselves in these characters. And it fit them like a jacket, like an old jacket that they had put on, they found in their closet, but that it felt new and refreshed again for them. And that for me was the best part of watching this, is that they infused humor in this series that was always kind of absent from the original series. Even from the movies, they tried to dip their pinky toe in with a little bit of humor, but it was kind of like, it felt forced. But this one, it felt so natural, so organic. And so that when the jokes did arrive, or the humorous moments, like when Riker and Troy are in the ship, and Worf, rescues them, and then he says, Worf says to Deanna Troi, like, I've been, waiting, like the tides of an ocean to see you. And Riker's like, what is that? And he's going on about his self-meditation and his advancement and then Riker's like, are you just continuing the torture? Like, what is happening? Like, but it felt like it wasn't delivered in a way that he was just reading off a cue card. It felt so natural. And so for me, the best part of this entire series is that it felt like home.
Organic.
It felt like these guys knew who they were. These guys and girls, like these characters knew who they were, and it felt really nice and refreshing. So that for me is the biggest thing about it.
Andre, yourself?
Okay, yeah. I was trying to articulate that what I said earlier, Rob. So that's perfect. Like it's in a way like they are not only getting to play real characters, but they've grown up playing these characters, and you can tell that they have that family and that camaraderie. Like these actors probably stayed in touch, in some way, shape, or form throughout the years, and it really does show when they're on the screen and they're interacting with each other. There's so many moments that I really thoroughly enjoyed in this, but I will say, because I have to pick one moment, Stu, I will say it had to have been when Data and Lore are on the screen and they've removed the partition and Lore is about to take over Data. And at this point we get Brent Spinner, and you see how great an actor he is, because you're seeing Data as the, you know, kind of the perplexed, naive, good character, and you see that, and then they flip it, and then it's Lore, and he's angry and stuff, and it was just such a moving scene of you know, when Data says, you know, Lore says, "Why are you giving me these things?" And Data says, "These aren't things. These are my memories. These are what make me." And he's like, "I'm giving them to you because I've had everything and you've had nothing." And it's such a human moment. Like, you know, the whole quest for Data was to become human. And he doesn't realize he's been the most human of us this whole time, you know, and he gets to the part where he hands him Spot. And at this point, I'm in Barbados with my parents, and I'm watching it with my mom, and I'm crying because it's so good, you know. And I used to watch that show with my mom, and she's watching it, and we're enjoying it. And it's such a powerful moment. And again, they pulled it off because it wasn't cheesy. It felt real. Like they weren't doing it to make it a tearjerker. It was good. And again, this is the testimony to the writing. You know, I don't know if the actors had input in it or whatever, but man, that one moment was just like, you know, just such a great part of it. And after that, seeing Data back with them, you know, yeah, like again, so many great moments in it, but I don't want to take too much time, but yeah, flawless.
Yeah, it's funny because Brent Spiner was on Inside of You with Michael Rosenbaum, and he asked him about the cast and crew they're still together, and he's like, "Oh no, we chat with each other every week, like on the phone, and when we do Star Trek cruises, we're together, and we do conventions, we're together, and we genuinely like each other, and we're friends, and we chat, and we see each other." So that definitely does ooze onto the screen when you see them. Yeah, they do. Like, they're not strangers. They basically went on the circuit forever. And I look back at another interview with Donald Glover too, where he didn't realize till after the fact what Community was to him until he left. He's like, he left and he's like, "Yeah, this show or whatever," and he's like, he's gone, and he came back, he's like 10 years later, he's like, "I didn't realize what I had in this experience till after the fact." And now he's like, where his kids are watching it and people are coming up, and he mentions it too, like more people come up to him and ask him about Community than anything else he's done. He's Lando freaking Calrissian, you know. He's Lando, he's in Atlanta, he's Childish Gambino, like, and that's the thing, that when you're in the moment, you don't see the swirlingness of everything around you, and a little time will get away, and time for you to have that. And that group had done movies too, so it's not like they're that far. But yeah, to your point, I think it's been a good 10 years since I can't remember when Nemesis was. Like, it's more than 10 years, probably. Like,
Nemesis is 20, right?
Like, yeah, it's got to be that long since they've been together on
Nemesis
screen.
would have been like 1999 or 2001 or something.
God. Yeah, like 20 plus years.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I loved, like, I knew, and like I think we talked before, the writing had to entice people back. I think, like you said before, it was one, all of our friends are getting back together, we're being paid to hang out, cool. And then John Frakes was like, "Hey, Patrick Stewart's getting older, so basically we shot all of his stuff in the morning, and then everyone else did theirs in the evening." Like, that's how production schedule went. So Patrick get up, do his lines first thing in the morning, we do his, and everyone else got to hang out and do stuff in the afternoon. So it was a very like regimented, but they did it because of his age and everything else. So that was interesting. We talked about shorthand. We've seen, Andre and myself, and I've seen all 178 episodes. Rob's probably seen like at least 50. John's probably seen at least 50 episodes. There's a shorthanded character. We've seen them do everything together. So I knew that was seamless. What I was really enjoying about this season was not them. I actually enjoyed Todd Stashwick as Liam Shaw. He became my favorite character. He became the voice of me going, "What the hell are you guys doing? You can't do this." And like the emotion that he said in the bar when Patrick Stewart's meeting with also another one, Ed Spielers from Aragon or whatever, Jack Crusher, and when he's trying to like meet his son and like get it, Liam just comes in and was like, "This asshole, this guy, this is who he is. He is Lakius of Borg. He was such a badass where no one gets names. He got a name." And just to see that kind of performance where we all think, yeah, Picard. It's like, no, there are people out there that hate this guy's guts because of what he did. It's not perfect, but I appreciated his thing, and I also appreciate the turn when he was with Geordi. He's like, "Oh my God, you're Geordi LaForge," because he's an engineer, and like the nerding out. He's like, so I enjoyed like the nuance of the fact that there are these other characters that can still geek out just like we would if we were in that situation, because it's a galaxy and other people know of each other's accolades. It's not like, oh, you study in the textbooks and all these, because again, they write logs and everyone knows things. So I was happy with that, and I was happy with the way that they kind of integrated the diciness of like how he got his accent. I'm not going to question. He's like, you just hung out in London and you got an accent. I'm like, I don't think that's how it works, but sure.
No,
okay.
Yeah, you can't go to school and all of a sudden get an accent. Yeah.
Like unless I was born in school since birth. I'm like, oh, that really or like he's just one of those guys that speaks like us but chooses the British accent.
Right.
Where there's like, oh, he's 16, he decided just to change it and say, good day, governor. Okay, so let's go through some things that you so the two new characters is what I loved the most, and then
sorry, Stu, before to piggyback quickly on yours on shot, the other part that really made me laugh is when somebody, I think it was Riker, was like, yeah, but we've saved the universe like dozens of times. Goes, because you guys screwed it up. like he's essentially calling him out, saying, yeah, okay, is it really saving it when you're cleaning up your own mess? Like, I thought that was like, I was like, oh, this is, he's the voice of everybody else going, this is bullshit. Yeah, you guys are inflating your own egos for something, right? It was hilarious. Yeah.
He's like, the whole time he's like, you guys are being court-martialed. Like, you get yourself out of this mess. I'm not doing anything. I was like, oh, bravo. Like, this guy's like, everyone's like, yeah, I'm from the South Side of Chicago. I'm like, this is everyone you want to be in Star Trek.
Right.
And I was just heartbroken when he was like, you guys. I'm like, of course you do this to me. Like, you kill a guy that, like, we're all like, everyone. It was funny because up to that point, everyone's like, Shaw's the best. Shaw's the best. When can he his own TV show? And they're like, nope. Yeah. Sweep the leg, and you're like, oh, yeah, again. I don't like that. I was clearly upset about that. I was also, before we get to the negative things, not happy with they did Rolaren dirty. I'm like, really? That's the way you're gonna do things? For shame, Rolaren. Like that was a really touching.
I thought it was.
Moment.
Oh man, I thought that was a great part. Like.
No, it was great. Like actors come back because it was great writing, and when they talked, that was a beautiful scene. You broke my heart. It's like all this stuff. It's like, but Rolaren, it's like, what the Kardashian, like she had a reason because of what was going on, and Patrick Stewart, like Jean-Luc was not doing what he had to do. It's like I don't understand what was happening with the Cardassians killing the Bajorans and stuff. Like there was a bigger calling, and it was just sad when the ending was like, yeah, we're just gonna blow this ship up and she's dead. I'm like, great. I always wanted her to come back, and she did. It was like 3 minutes and she's done. So,
but it was epic, wonderful. Honestly, it was an epic, way, because at least they got the closure. You know what I mean? Like it was nice for them to bring it up, because then I'm like, oh my god, yeah, I do remember this. But I think she got she got a cool send off, right? Yeah. Like she didn't go out like a chump.
Right.
Still went out. Shaw went out. It doesn't matter. They're still dead.
Shaw went out like a chump, but Rolaren, I think she kicked it off, right? Like she got them. She gave them a chance to escape, and she alerted them to the dangers, and he figured out the thing with the earrings. And it was again good writing. Holy smokes,
And credit to Amanda Plummer too, right? As like the antagonist. That wasn't even the whole entire season. She was only in it for like, I guess the first 6 episodes of her, right? But like she was phenomenal. Like that's the thing. Like a lot of these villains in these movies or whatever, Star Trek ones, they can be really cliche, right? Like they're really playing into the, the Dudley, villains, right? And this one, she was like, she was pretty slick, right? Like she was quite terrifying. Like
Andre, she had her T-1000 moment where she turned to liquid silicon.
That's right. Yeah.
Explodes. All right, Rob, tell us what you didn't like.
What didn't I like?
Yeah.
I thought that the Jack Crusher, like being tied into the Borg thing, like for me, I was like, it felt like a way of just trying to get the Borg back into it. And I was like, I don't know. It just seemed like I get it. But then I was like, first of all, you're dealing with the fact that Picard's got a son. And you're like, oh, okay. And, he was knocking boots with Beverly Crusher. Poor Loris. Can we just say Loris from season 1 and 2, I guess, is love lorn and love lost. But then, and then to make, to have him, his blood to have been infected and whatnot. And then them using the transporter to rewrite the genetic DNA of everybody under the age of 25 or whatever. I just thought it was a little bit too too perfect of a.
Hey, Dr. Polanski, that's canon. She was great going age. They found some hair in her hairbrush, put her in the transporter, regenerated her, back to normal. So I
just found all of it like to make him like to then be like the Borg a beacon, I guess, for lack of a better term. I just thought but to be honest with you, like that's such a minor nitpick because it was still like enjoyable. For the most part, I didn't have anything really wrong with this series. Like I said, some ebbs and flows, but natural. Like it just felt like it can't be go all the time. So, I'm nitpicking on the one thing, but even then, it was decent. So yeah,
Andre.
Yeah, it's. I remember thinking, and I said it earlier in this podcast, is like, not only what a time to be alive to get a Star Wars cartoon and a Star Wars live action, but then I'm getting Picard, great Star Trek. Like I haven't been a super huge fan of the other Star Trek shows, but I'm like, what a time to be able. And these 2 season finales, one was on a Wednesday and one was on a Thursday. So I'm like, this is fantastic. There was really nothing that I disliked about this season. I would say the only thing that got me shaking my head a little bit was, well, 2 things, but they are kind of tied in. How dark the Titan was and stuff like the ship was. It's just dark. Like I was like, but I get why they were doing it because when the Enterprise comes back, you're like, oh wow, this is how it should be, right? But I will say the monologue of the main villain, like when she talks about, oh, I was tortured and blah blah blah, and it got inflicted with so much pain. Now, obviously, the memory could be strained because of the person. But literally, the scene of the memory is the doctor that's doing it is using needles and a blowtorch. And I'm like, there hasn't been a needle since, before Captain Kirk days, So it was a very, like, nowadays torture scene when it should have been something 300 years. But they wanted it to be graphic. I get that. So that's the only thing I can say that I didn't really, really like. But other than that, like, I was watching it week to week, so I don't think the pacing was off. Like, I loved every episode. I'm like, God damn, I can't wait till next week. So I thought the pacing was really good. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but the last 2 episodes were a little bit longer, and I thought it was brilliant. It was just
no. I think the pacing is just. I wanted the crew to come back together, and it took so goddamn long for it to happen. It felt like watching an anime where you start off with one character. It's like 6 episodes. Now you get 2. 6 episodes after that, you get the 3rd one. 6 episodes after that, you get the 4th one. It's just like forever. I'm like, just get them all together. I know who they are. It's not like I have to do a backstory. It's not like One Piece where it takes 1,000 episodes to get 8 people on this crew. I know every character. Just get them together immediately. Even when it was like, oh, here's Will. It's like, okay, great. It's a William Riker / Picard thing. It's like, oh, then Worf is somewhere else. Where's Geordi? Yeah. Where's all like? It just took forever for them to be in a room, and like it was theoretically, Audrey, episode 9 where they're finally on a table sitting together. I'm like, this is what I remember. It took you 9 episodes to get here. Shouldn't have taken you 9 episodes.
More climactic. It was.
Yeah, but it's just like this is the easiest thing you gotta do. Just sit around the table and just read stuff. I'm like, great. This is the best thing possible. It was just infuriating. It took that long to get to that point, and then at the end it was great. All that other stuff. But yeah, Roll Aaron, that the whole thing, and then finally, John, plug your ears or whatever. The last scene of this show. There's
you tell him to plug his ears. He covers his eyes. Like, this is John, right? He's just. And
so
he keeps microphone on mute.
So, at the final scene, a character shows up, and it was like, "Here, buddy, the test isn't over. You are going to continue." So now we've got the Titan rechristened as the Enterprise G. We have 7 of 9 as the captain. We have Jack somehow as a counselor. I don't even know what he is. He's like special
counselor.
It's like this is talk about nepo babies. People complain about nepotism. Yeah, it's 100%. How did you get through Starfleet in 1 year? Well, my mom's over the question. My dad is Captain John Admiral Picard. You're like, right. That's why you're here. That's why you're on bridge, which could lead to a further show. Rob, are you excited about this potential spin-off show? Like they're teasing, maybe they're gonna be in a Star Trek show. Do you care about this? Would you watch?
Yeah, I'd be interested to see where it goes because I actually do like Jack Crusher. I thought he was like really well. Like this is the thing is that all these other characters who were brought into this series, even though 7 of 9 and the other one, I can't remember her name now, were in the first 2 seasons of Picard. Rafi, sorry, thanks. I thought they all did a really good job.
From I think Law and Order SVU fame.
That's right.
I think that's what
they all did a really good job up next to the TNG crew. It's not easy to be to elevate your game to their level, and they did. They did great. So yeah, I would totally be down to see it. My only thing though is that I wish that they didn't retrofit the Titan, because that's like, I think that might be the smallest Enterprise aside from the very first one that Jonathan Archer had piloted. I would have liked them to have had a bigger ship to rechristen as the as Enterprise.
But that's because it's a year later. I don't know if you caught it, Rob, but the ship that flies out on Federation Day, that's the new Enterprise, and Shelby's on that ship.
Yeah,
and it's blown up. So they have no Enterprise, so they couldn't build a new Enterprise in a year. Right.
Yeah.
So, but anyways, yeah, I get that.
Just make it a little bit bigger.
We need a bigger boat. Is that what you're saying?
Actually, you know what? They should have just taken the old one out, Enterprise D, and said, you know what? We can retrofit, these systems and whatnot. It's obviously in well working order. Geordie's built it back up.
Yeah,
they should have just done that one.
I have a question. I get you're building like a car, but that is a huge ship. Like you're just sitting there, like how long? Like I can imagine, like if you're going through, you're like fixing one thing. You're like you're a carpenter. You can do carpet too. Like how are you doing? This ship is huge. Like it's supposed to be.
Replicator. He built a really big replicator.
That's all he needs. You can have all the materials sent to. You gotta carry it from basically from here to the end of the. That takes forever. Like this is not a small ship. I think it'd take you an entire day to walk to the front and the back. Like this is it's supposed to house what? Like how many people were on at one point? Like 10,000 people.
It was crazy.
The huge ass ship. Like you have to go through eat. Like unless it's they just
making all the rooms.
Yeah, make all the rooms unless he just did the bridge, and he's like, I just did one room. The rest of it's basically empty. It's like this is everything's basically not working. The only thing that works is this and maybe 10 forward. It is what it is. All right, Andre, would you watch a new show like this? Would you care?
See, I did like all the interactions and stuff, but I'm just worried because the bar is set so high from this one that if the same people decide to make this, I'm like, how do you top this? And it's almost like
it's a new show title, Star Trek Legacy or whatever. So it's a
exactly. So I do get that, but I would be in for is Star Trek Legacy, 1 hour specials or hour and 10-minute specials, as opposed to an ongoing series, because that way they can wait till they have the really good stories to tell and do it, instead of them running into a Discovery thing where they're like, oh yeah, we've got 12 episodes or 15 episodes, and then season 2 we got a brand new showrunner and a whole new idea. Season 3, brand new showrunner and a new idea. So then you didn't really have an idea for Discovery, you know what I mean? Or your idea didn't work. So I would say cautiously optimistic, but I would almost be like, hey, we literally just, did something amazing. Let's sit back and revel in it, So
yeah, I would want to watch it as long as it's a 10 episode thing. I think I missed the characters. I missed having Star Trek when TNG, DS9, Voyager all kind of at the same timelines, although they changed uniforms, which was hilarious. And then when they did back and forth crossovers, they're like, yeah, don't worry about it. We're going to do what we do. Because I love that stuff. And I would appreciate they go back to it, because spoiler, Discovery's not in the same timeline, and neither is Strange New Worlds. So we have 2 Star Trek shows that don't exist in the prime timeline. So I kind of want to see what these people are doing in this timescape. So we'll see. Again, I'm happy to have more, but if I don't, then I got Captain Pike. Dreamboat Pike. I don't care about anyone else at this standpoint, so I'm good to go. Any final thoughts before we bounce? Anything else finally before we get to the end?
Well, sure. I just say the first ending scene of them playing cards.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Again, what a moment. I think kind of Rob hints on it a little bit when he's talking about it. It's just as you get older, you have a different connection, a different outlook and stuff. And to me at that moment, I was thinking about, man, how cool would it be to get together with all my friends that we used to do a Halo LAN party, and we just get to do that again, but we're 60 years old. You just saw that moment. It was just such a great. It was just such a great
moment. You gotta put that
moment.
router outside your window, Andre.
Yeah,
you have your glasses on.
You gotta hang the router outside the window again.
Yeah, so it was just such a perfect moment, and really, hats off to the writer and the idea, and again, being fortunate enough to be at the store and talk to people as they're watching this. A couple of the guys are saying, "Oh, who do you think is going to die in the last part?" I'm like, listen, I said, nobody's dying. They've all made it this far. They are going to give us the happy ending wrapped in a box. And I said, and I want that. I deserve that. I don't know if they consciously did it because they say, hey, we're giving Trek fans what they deserve. This isn't going to be like what happened to Star Wars, but it just was so perfect. It couldn't have happened. Like I said, it couldn't have happened at any other time. If they had done a comeback tour after, heaven forbid, one of the characters had passed on in real life and did it, it wouldn't have felt the same. It would have felt, but yeah. So it was such a perfect moment.
Yeah. No, I think it echoed what at the final we're waiting for at the end of TNG when Picard knocks is like, hey, can I play with you guys? We were waiting for that payoff. And again, it's no better way to do a nice sign off than that as well, except for this time, just them laughing, actually playing cards rather than Picard telling stories and shuffling. So it was nice. All right, John, tell us where where they can find us online, and Andre, tell us where we can find you in the real world.
Yeah. So if you're not following us already, Heroes World Online, Facebook and Instagram. Hey, we just gave away a bunch of tickets to see Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. So you should definitely be following us on our socials to check out what's new at the shop and other cool stuff like that. Heroes World Online on the YouTube channel. And if you're listening to us on the audio, Heroes World Podcast on Spotify is my delivery method of choice, but also on iTunes and whatever you get your podcasts. So thank you everybody for always liking, subscribing, and sharing our content and participating. Get at us in the comments. Like Andre said, it's really fun to be able to talk to you guys about all this kind of stuff.
Andre?
All right. And in the desert of the real, we are at 8601 Warden Avenue. That's Warden Highway 7 in Markham, Ontario. That's where you can find John and myself, hanging around, having fun, talking comics, board games, card games, miniature games, all the stuff we love. And we know you guys love them too. So come by, check us out. But if you can't get to us, it's Heroes World Online. We're putting up new stuff on our website all the time. And we're going to have a big announcements for you guys coming up soon in May. So stay tuned for that.
Awesome. Thanks, Andre. Rob, what's going on the Sidekick Show?
Yeah, so Stu, hey, thanks for asking. So the first Monday of every month, John and I are going back into Mission Mondays, where we're revisiting a Mission Impossible movie as we lead up to July's release of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. So this Monday, it is Mission Monday, and we are doing number 5, which is Rogue Nation. They just released all the Mission Impossible movies on Netflix in Canada. So if you don't, people are like, I have a Paramount Plus subscription. Don't worry, we got you. We called up Netflix. We said, yo, you guys got to put this stuff on. People of Heroes World got to watch us, check us out on the Sidekick Show. So dial up your Netflix account, go in, watch Rogue Nation, and join John and I Monday Night Live, 8:15 p.m. on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch as we discuss Rogue Nation for Mission Monday.
Nice. Well, thank you for joining us for kind of two various different conversations, both Mandalorian and Picard. Have a good one. Be safe out there, people. Have a good one.
Okay. Take care.